Hi, welcome to my channel. Today I want to show you how to cut a pencil skirt, or a tube skirt rather. It's a tube skirt because you don't need a zip and you don't need that, and you need a stretchy fabric. So for this to be able to achieve a tube skirt like I'm going to cut, you need your fabric, you need your scissors, you need your ruler, you need a chalk, and you need your tape measurement. So it's pretty straightforward and easy to make. The beauty about making skirts like this is that you save a lot of money and you get what you want. Because most times if you walk into the normal skirt shops, you don't get exactly the skirt you're looking for. So you need to make do. Is it that it's too short, or it's too long, or you don't like the fabric? So with this tutorial, you can get to wear the kind of skirt you want to and the fabric you so desire. So what are we waiting for? Let's get cutting. So to cut this tube skirt, you need a fabric that really stretches. So I got this beautiful For fabric. Like you can see, it has a nice stretch. So before you start cutting, you want to check your fabric and make sure the stretch is either both ways or one way. Like if I pull this way, there's no stretch. If I pull this way, there's a stretch. That means I should cut across, not vertically but horizontally. So now I'm going to fold my fabric into 4. So you need to check how much your fabric stretches, because some fabric stretch more than others. So you cannot judge a fabric by the way it looks until you actually check the way it stretches. So when you want to fold, you don't need to fold as big as you're going to fold, or as wide as you're going to fold when you're cutting a normal pencil skirt with a cotton fabric. So I'm going to check. I want to cut a size 14. I want to cut a skirt with hip 44. So normally you will check your measurement 44 divided by 4. But for a tube skirt that stretches, I don't need to use the whole 44 inches for my skirt because it stretches. And you want your skirt to give you a beautiful form when you wear. So I'm just going to check and see if what I've folded can accommodate my hip. So I have exactly 44 here, and that is a bit much, because if I sew using the 44, okay, the skirt is going to be really big because of the way this fabric stretches. So what I'm going to be using is 42. I'm going to be using 42 to cut my skirt as opposed to 44. So I'm dropping a size down. So that's what you want to do. Sometimes you can even drop a size and a half. It depends on the stretch of your fabric. So having ascertained now that the folded piece, the folded fabric can accommodate my hip, the next thing I'm going to do is get the length of my skirt. So because this fabric stretches and I want it to be snug, I need to increase my length of my skirt a little. If you use exactly the length of your skirt and you are doing a tube skirt and it's going to, be snug on you, what happens is that the skirt pulls upwards. So you need to add some extra inches to your normal length. So normally I would have done a 25 inches length skirt, but because of the fabric and the style of the skirt, I'm going to be using 28 inches. So what I want to do now is measure 28 inches. So 28 inches stops here. Okay, I'm going to trim the bottom. Make sure it's even first. That is very important, because you don't want the bottom of your skirt not being even. And most times in a fabric like this, sometimes it happens. So I just trimmed out the bottom of my fabric. Okay, and now I'm going to get the length 28. So that is where 28, because of the kind of fabric, it may not be so obvious my length or the chalk mark. So 28 ends there. Now, because of the kind of fabric I'm using, I may not need necessarily to fold my bottom of the bottom of my skirt, because if I fold the bottom, it may not look as professional as I want, and if I don't fold it, it's not going to be obvious either. So I'm going to decide to leave my skirt just like this, unhemmed. But if you want to hem, you can also hem by using your hemming glue, or you can just use a needle and thread to tack the bottom. So whatever you choose to do, it's up to you. So now this is 28 inches. Now I'm going to leave 1 extra inch for my fold for my elastic. So I'm going to add 1 inch to this skirt, just an inch, so it becomes 29. So I'm making my skirt longer than necessary because I don't want my skirt to pull upwards when I'm wearing. So do well to consider how you want the end result to look. So now I'm going to cut out what I need for my skirt. I'm cutting that out. So I'm taking off the fabric I won't be needing. So because it's fur, sometimes you see it leaves some particles, but don't worry about that. Now I'm going to, yes, so because this fabric really stretches, to get my waist, I'm going to use my waist measurement, which is 36. I can even break it down to 35. Okay, so that's my waist there, because I want it to really grip my waist. And from that point, not on the 1 inch I'm going to add my elastic to, but below the 1 inch I'm going to start measuring my hip. So I'm going to use 9. So at 9 inches I'll get my hip. So I'm going to use 42, like I said earlier, for my hip, because I don't want it too tight. Then for the bottom, I'm going to subtract 6 from the top. So 42 minus 6, I'm going to get 36 at the bottom. Or you can make it 34. It depends on how fitted you want it to be. So do what works for you. So that's my skirt. That's the skirt shape. So like you see, you can use a ruler to do this to make it perfect. So now I have what I need for my skirt. You may decide to leave small allowance for your sewing, but because of the stretch of this fabric, I am not going to do that. I'm just going to cut exactly on the line because I know the fabric stretches a lot, and I'm going to sew. So after sewing, it's going to come to E40, okay, and make it really fitted. So that's my skirt I have cut, and now we're going to go to the sewing of the skirt. So when you open this up, this is what you're going to find. Okay, that's the skirt. So now I'm going to sew around the skirt, and we have our skirt. I just made the skirt. Okay, so you want to trim the bottom because sometimes after sewing you can have some uneven ends, as you see. I'm going to trim that nicely. Then now I'm just going to fold the waistline and add my elastic. I'm going to add my elastic band, so watch the way I do this. So I've cut my elastic band, and this is about 10 inches smaller than my waist. So I'm going to just do this, and I'm going to stitch, give a really firm stitch around that edge before I start fixing this to the waist. Yes, so I've done the first step. I use the elastic band. Now the next thing you want to do is to fold inwards and you give it a run on the machine. As you sew, you pull along as you sew, and you see your skirt is ready.